In light of the recent release of more than 3 million Epstein files and Attorney General Pam Bondi's embarrassing congressional testimony, something is more obvious than ever in this nation. There is a two-tiered system of justice, and wealthy elites such as Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, and Elon Musk are in the tier that never receives any consequences for the horrible crimes they commit. This has always been the case in America, or really any society. This realization is often one of the biggest reasons powerful nations collapse. However, it has never been so transparently public and on display for all of the American people to see. It has been over 6 years since Epstein was found dead in his cell, and not one co-conspirator has been imprisoned or even brought to trial except Ghislaine Maxwell, who has received incredible and unprecedented treatment since being incarcerated. According to House Democrats, Maxwell has been receiving special services such as access to a personal laptop, bottled water, special visitor areas, and even a service dog. I can't imagine the suffering that poor pup must be going through. The woman is evil in its purest form, and yet the Bryan Federal Prison Camp in Texas is treating her like it's an extended stay resort. On September 16, 2025, recently sworn-in director of the FBI, Kash Patel, claimed that there was no credible information that financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein trafficked young women to anyone but himself during a Senate Judiciary Committee. When pressed by Senator John Kennedy, a Republican for Louisiana, on his department's handling of Epstein files, Patel responded that the FBI would release whatever we are legally permitted to make public, noting that his agency has been complying with subpoena requests by the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Patel testified under oath that the Epstein-Maxwell survivors were not credible in their claims, and eyewitness testimony that they were trafficked to others besides Epstein and Maxwell. He sang Virginia Giuffre, who tragically died by apparent suicide last year, lied about being raped by ex-Prince Andrew, even though Andrew paid her millions, and even though there is clear and undeniable photographic evidence of her, him, and Maxwell together when she was a minor. And she's not the only survivor who claims there were other clients. He's saying he doesn't believe them, so now it's one or the other. Patel is lying, or the survivors are. I think people who believe Patel are disgusting if they also doubt the survivors are telling the truth. That makes them sex trafficking sympathizers. With the recent release of only about half of the Epstein files, it's clear that Patel is a liar and covering up for pedophiles in the Trump administration. By the way, there are quite a lot of them. Yesterday, our new U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi testified on the Epstein files. It was basically a 4-hour shouting match where members of the House hurled insults at her and vice versa. But amidst all of the high school rhetoric, several members of the House brought up some very good questions that Bondi refused to answer or just lied about. In her testimony before the House Judiciary Committee, Bondi refused to apologize for the handling of the release of the Epstein files. And although she began her testimony by acknowledging Epstein survivors and saying she was deeply sorry for what they had to experience, she later refused to apologize directly to the survivors who appeared before her. At one point, she even went on some bizarre tangent about the Dow, in which she yelled at committee member Jamie Raskin, quote, "I don't know why you're laughing. The Dow is over 50,000 right now, the S&P at almost 7,000, and the NASDAQ smashing records. That's what we should be talking about." The average working class American doesn't give a shit about the Dow, and certainly not the victims of Epstein. She mostly deflected valid concerns, blaming all of the reps for not being this aggressive with the Biden and Obama administrations who also participated in this cover-up. It's true that Democrats did basically nothing regarding the Epstein files, but they're not the ones under fire, she is. They're also not the ones who ran for office under the premise of taking down a global cabal of elitist pedophiles. Also, in a courtroom, the defense of, yeah, I committed that murder, but what about the other people who got away with it, would never work. Democrats and some Republicans are absolutely using the Epstein files as leverage to take down the Trump administration, but regardless, those responsible do need to be held accountable. When the time comes for Democrats and the files to be held over the flame, I will also be here to watch them roast. Surprising enough, the left and the right seem to be in agreement when it comes to Pam Bondi's blatant disregard for the House of Representatives, who for once are actually doing a good thing, the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and the American people's rightful concerns for the biggest government cover-up in our nation's history. Everyone agrees that her childish responses of, "No, you," were completely unprofessional and unacceptable from the highest body of law enforcement in the nation. She apparently brought a list of dirt, coined the Burn Book, that she had the DOJ dig up on representatives. It included information on their search history and criminals in their districts that she planned on and did in fact use to insult them during the hearing. If theatrics weren't already cringe enough, this was the icing on the cake to be smashed in our faces. I've stated this multiple times and will once more. America is on the decline. We are a slowly collapsing empire, and I believe it will end in a whimper, not a bang. The first time Trump won, he vowed to drain the swamp, revive American industry, tame debt, rebuild trust, and restore pride. The second time, he returned with a sharper edge and a louder voice, insisting that only he could finish the job he claimed had been sabotaged the first time around. What MAGA voters received instead wasn't renewal, but a grim revelation. The failure was never just Trump. He was the messenger. The problem is that America no longer has the political, economic, or cultural capacity to deliver restoration at all. Trump's first term was sold as corrective. A wrecking ball swung at elite incompetence. Yet by the end, the swamp was deeper, the debt was larger, and the institutions Trump railed against weren't dismantled but further exposed as ineffective and untrustworthy. Manufacturing never returned its scale. Infrastructure weak became a punchline. Trade wars amounted to economic self-harm, raising costs, and squeezing the very American workers Trump was elected to protect. The federal debt kept climbing, with little to show for it beyond tax cuts that failed to deliver the promised economic revival. Still, many believed a second term would be different, informed by experience and tempered by past mistakes. They were wrong. If anything, has been worse. Not because Trump changed, but because the country has weakened further, and no amount of bravado can reverse structural decline. America is approaching its 250th birthday. That's no small achievement. Empires rarely last that long. It has been a remarkable run, but longevity doesn't guarantee vitality. What once powered American dominance, productive labor, demographic confidence, institutional trust, and cultural gravity is steadily eroding. The U.S. now spends more paying off past mistakes than investing in the future. Our soft power has decreased significantly, our education system has declined, and elitist institutions are no longer trusted by the public. We are socially falling apart with higher unemployment rates for the youth, marriages being wiped out, and birth rates falling rapidly. You may have heard the comparison before, but one of the major reasons that pandas are endangered is because they refuse to breed in captivity. It looks like we're not much different. Worst of all, our entire economical system is being held together by a bunch of greedy billionaires who spend their free time raping kids. When it was a conspiracy theory, there was still hope. But now that everything is out in the open, it's hard for anyone who is politically conscious to harbor any form of patriotism. Mine has certainly faded, but just as a prisoner serving a life sentence with no parole has hope that one day they will receive a pardon or be declared innocent, I also have hope that one day these elitist scum and their sycophant servants will pay for their crimes. If not, then maybe it's best for the American empire to wash away with all of the blood and other bodily fluids we've covered the world in.